What if you discovered a man who usually uses sports Rolex, Patek Philippe, and Omega suddenly turned heads with a watch that cost just $19? Intriguing, isn't it? What could possibly draw this high-end watch expert to such a budget-friendly wristwatch? Stick around and we'll unravel this mystery together. But before we start, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video.
I know what you're thinking, and no, this is not a joke. This little, inexpensive Casio a158wa is my absolute favorite watch right now. So with watches in my collection from Rolex, Vacheron, and Lange, why on earth would I buy a $19 watch, right? Well, I'm gonna tell you why I bought it and also why I cannot take it off my wrist. I'm Brian Sacawa, and you are watching He Spoke Style, where we give you the information and inspiration you need to dress well, have more confidence, and unlock your potential. This video is sponsored by Casio. Just kidding, that is a joke too. Do not hit the thumbs down. This video is not a sponsored video. So yeah, the story. I'll get to the story and actually something a little bit deeper, but before we get to that, I do want to go over all the details of this watch and give you a closer look at it. So this is the Casio a158wa. The case is made from silver resin and has a diameter of 34 millimeters, a thickness of 8.5 millimeters, and a lug-to-lug width of 38 millimeters. Case back is stainless steel, where you can see the brand stamped and model number 593, which makes it very similar to the popular F91W. The linked bracelet is also stainless steel, and it has a quartz movement with a battery life of around 7 years. One of the cool things that I like between the case and the bracelet is that the case has a polished appearance while the bracelet has a more brushed appearance. Some people might not like that, but for me, it's a nice contrast that adds some subtle visual interest. On the dial here, we've got a crisp LCD screen which displays the time, hours, minutes, and running seconds, and you can easily toggle between 12-hour time and 24-hour time with the pusher on the right. Above the time, kind of between the hours and minutes, you have the day of the week, and then over to the right, above the seconds, is the date. The screen does have a backlight that you operate with the top pusher on the left side of the case, but honestly, it's very weak and only really provides any kind of value in near complete or complete darkness. Not very useful, but one of its charms. More on that later. With the bottom pusher on the left, you can cycle through the watch's various operations. First is the alarm function, then the stopwatch, which is very intuitive to use. Start, stop on the right, and reset on the top left. And then finally, you get to where you can set the date and time. On the wrist, this watch is just an absolute joy to wear. I mentioned the size, which makes it ideal for those of us with smaller wrists. And what I also like about that is that unlike the G-Shock, which gets a ton of attention and really calls attention to itself, the a158wa is a much more subtle piece. It's very light, so you basically don't even know you're wearing it. And really the best part about this watch, other than the price at just $19, is the look. It's got a great retro style and feel, which if you grew up in the 80s, like me, really gets those nostalgia juices flowing. So that brings us back to the question of why did I buy this watch? Now, the honest truth is that I actually bought this watch for another video that is coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be doing a series of videos comparing cheap or inexpensive watches with the real luxury watches that they are trying to emulate. Anyway, the ironic thing is that I didn't buy this watch for the watch itself. I bought it for the bracelet, and you'll see in a couple of weeks, this bracelet makes a really good substitute for another bracelet on another watch that moves that watch even closer to looking like the real thing. More to follow. But a funny thing happened when I got this Casio in the mail and opened it up. Now, mind you, the experience of opening up and unboxing a Casio a158wa is very different than, your luxury watch unboxing experience. Instead of a big ornate box with latches and velvet and little drawers with thick manuals and laminated cards, it comes in, basically a little cardboard jewelry box and a manual with a few pages that are folded over on each other. In fact, it was so unimpressive that I threw the packaging out pretty much immediately. Of course, I wasn't looking for or expecting a luxury watch unboxing experience from a $19 watch, but the experience I had was almost better. Opening the packaging and taking this watch out brought me back to a time when I was a kid. It brought me back to that Timex Ironman that I love so much. It brought me back to that neon swatch with the rotating bezel. Inexpensive watches, but watches that brought me so much joy and still have meaning to me today. And if you're into watches, isn't that what it's all about? I wanted to bring that up in the context of this video because I feel like sometimes, especially when people get a first taste of higher-end watches, that you can kind of fall into the trap of looking down on watches that are literally cheap. Like, if you're not paying a lot of money, then the watch isn't worth anything, right? I do kind of want to open up this can of worms here because I've certainly been guilty of some minor watch snobbery here and there. And for me personally, that has typically revolved around fashion watches and fashion watch brands, which are a whole other thing that I do plan to do kind of a pretty deep dive into at some point in the near future on the channel. But it's just because, I'm the type of person that believes in being patient when it comes to not only the watches I buy for myself, but the other things that I invest in as well. I feel like we have this instant gratification culture where, we see something and we want it now. That's totally natural, but I feel like it leads to people wasting their money on things that are cheap and less expensive than probably what they really want. But if you were just a little more disciplined and patient, above all else, that you might actually be able to attain in the future. I wasn't expecting to like this watch as much as I did, and it really taught me a lesson about what watches really mean. It's not about having the most expensive watch. It's not about having the flashiest watch. I mean, maybe for some people it is, but real watch people don't care about that crap. It's about how the watch makes you feel. It's the story behind it. It's the joy that it brings to you. It's not about the price tag. Does this mean that I'm going to have a whole collection of Casio watches? No, but I really like this one.